premium experience. We'll discuss this and more of today's top headlines. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm guest host Houston Public Media reporter Michael Adkison. We'll also be dedicating our whole show today to the start of hurricane season, which will kick off with KTRK's chief meteorologist Travis Herzog, who will give us a preview of the season.
Plus, Nathan Brownell, the Vice President of Resilience and Capital Delivery at CenterPoint, will explain how the energy company is preparing for this year's hurricane season.
And as always, we want to hear from you, so give us a call or a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A semi-official Iranian news agency says the Islamic Republic is suspending talks via mediators with the United States. Tasnim reports Iran's halting indirect communications over expanding Israeli military operations in southern Lebanon and in Gaza. The issue of presidential war powers is one item on a long to-do list Congress faces as it returns from recess. NPR's Eric McDaniel reports the Senate had advanced a measure that would force an end to the conflict, in part because President Trump keeps making enemies of Senate Republicans.
Trump backed a primary opponent against Louisiana's Bill Cassidy. Cassidy will lose his seat come January. And then Cassidy joined with Democrats to force an end to the war. The House of Representatives actually delayed a vote on a similar Democratic war powers resolution after it looked like Republican absences in that chamber meant it would have passed. All of this voting is mostly symbolic, though. The president can veto any war powers resolutions constraining the war that get to his desk. But it's worth noting, of course, the Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war and regulate conflict, and the president is legally required to get their approval in order to continue his Iran war.
Eric McDaniel reporting. 3 Ebola vaccine candidates are being fast-tracked for development by the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness, a global health organization. Here's NPR's Jonathan Lambert.
The Ebola outbreak centered in the Democratic Republic of Congo is already one of the largest on record, with over 1,100 suspected cases. It's driven by a rarer species of Ebola, Bundabujo, for which there are no approved vaccines or treatments. But there are several candidate vaccines, and 3 will receive millions of dollars to jumpstart development. One is a Bundabujo version of the Ervbo vaccine, which was approved for a different Ebola strain. Another is being developed by the University of Oxford using a platform similar to the Oxford-AstraZeneca COVID vaccine. And the third is an mRNA vaccine from Moderna. It takes time for manufacturers to make enough product for clinical trials, so it'll likely be several months before any candidate reaches the outbreak. Jonathan Lambert, NPR News.
The Atlantic hurricane season formally begins today. NPR's Julia Simon says forecasters are predicting a below-average number of named storms.
Last month, forecasters with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said they expected this year's Atlantic hurricane season to be relatively quiet. NOAA is predicting 3 to 6 hurricanes, while 7 is the average annual number. That's in large part because the El Niño weather pattern will likely emerge this year. El Niños typically increase the strong winds that can tear apart developing storms. But while the Atlantic region may catch a break this year, the Eastern Pacific could face more storms. And the Federal Emergency Management Agency is going into this hurricane season with far less staff.
That's Julia Simon. It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. Roughly 800,000 Texans have been affected by a data breach that occurred on the cruise line company Carnival. That's according to the Texas Attorney General's office. 4 of the 90 ships that were impacted come in and out of the Galveston port. The breach occurred back on April 14th. The names, addresses, and contact information, along with government-issued ID numbers for millions of customers, have possibly been leaked. Carnival says it was offering impacted customers 2 years of free credit monitoring in response to the breach. And they urge those impacted to contact local authorities if anything is detected. A new investigative report shows hundreds of cases in which school police officers used physical force against students. Claire Amari of the New York Times told the Texas Standard it happens on a regular basis.
Officers in Texas schools do use physical force, do put hands on kids with some degree of regularity.
She says the investigation took months to complete because there is no centralized database on how frequently officers use force against students. Texas law requires an officer on every campus. Many districts created their own police forces to comply with the law, with officers falling under the supervision of that school's superintendent. Taking a look at sports, well, the Astros get today to lick their wounds after a 2-zip shutout by the Milwaukee Brewers on Sunday. Tuesday night, they welcome in the Pittsburgh Pirates at Daikin Park for a 7:10 game. Checking your weather, mostly sunny with a 20% chance of rain this afternoon, a high of 91. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low around 77 degrees with light winds. On Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms. Otherwise, it's going to be mostly sunny with a high near 91, feeling like 101. Right now, partly cloudy, 84 degrees on the UH campus. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
From Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston. Well, hello there. It's Ernie Manous back with you as we start the new week. And because it's Monday, that means it's Mondays with Michael.
Mondays with Michael.
Michael Adkison is sitting in with me again today. It's always a joy to have you in the co-host chair.
It is usually a pleasure to be. No, I'm kidding. No, it's great. And I feel like we missed last Monday. It was Memorial Day. So
Right.
it's
So
been a
no
while
Monday
since I've
with
been
Michael.
here. No Monday with Michael. Yeah. We did do that election special, and you still didn't hear
Tuesday.
from me. We had some technical difficulties on my end.
We knew you were there, though.
I was
in
there.
Spirit.
You
if
could
people
see
were
me.
watching on YouTube, they got to see you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You got to
that's
see
the
me. You couldn't hear me, but you got to see me.
Yeah, how was election night for you?
It was interesting. I feel like
Tell them where you were.
Yeah, so I was at Christian Menefee's watch party. Christian Menefee, of course, was the victor that night against incumbent Congressman Al Green. I felt like election night was really interesting in terms of seeing where each of the parties were going, what the direction was. It was the primary runoff, so we knew who the top two candidates for each of these races were going to be. And it was really interesting to see just how stark some of the results were. Just to mention the race that I was covering, Menefee and Al Green, it was not a particularly close race. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it's certainly a double-digit lead that Menefee had over Green. And when you have someone as well-known and as well-established as Congressman Green has been, he's someone that people in Houston know. And when you have that, again, stark of a victory from Menefee, I thought it was particularly striking to me, seeing that, okay, this is what Democrats who turn out to these elections want. They want younger candidates. They want progressive candidates. They want a new generation, essentially. You also saw that with the Harris County judge race. And I know that there's been some analysis that has attributed some of the success that Letitia Plummer had over Anise Parker perhaps was because of the direction that the congressional race for Menefee and Al Green went, of younger voters turning out for younger politicians.
Well, it's interesting, too, because the district, it was the new 18, as they kept talking about, which had been redistricted. 75% of it was the old District 9.
Right.
And so that threw off prediction markets because it was like, well, wait a minute. 75% have had Al Green as their representative. In the previous election that was just a few weeks before, or a couple months before, when Menefee won, he was still in the old 18. And that was a fresh seat that they didn't have an incumbent, so he had this momentum behind him. So it was interesting to see. It didn't matter.
Right.
They were fresh and ready for a change. Also, when you talk about turnout, that's such an important part.
Right.
And so if if one candidate is motivating an electorate, well, then they're also going to vote for other races while they're there.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. Another piece, not that we're doing politics today on
We're
the
a week
show.
later.
But a new analysis that I was just paying attention to, and it's kind of fascinating, and I'm going to talk about it off the cuff, so if I get something slightly off or I stumble, bear with me here. So looking at the U.S. Senate race, so we had Paxton against Cornyn, and everyone was talking about how amazing it was, how Paxton just came in there and took it, and the number of votes he had, and they attributed a lot of it to Trump's endorsement of him, and so therefore it just upset the race. Because beforehand we thought it was very close. I went back and looked. In the primary election, not the runoff election, the primary election, Paxton had about 800, and the numbers are close but not exact, 860,000 votes. And Cornyn obviously had, Cornyn had more. But there was a third person in the race. Hunt was in the race. You look at the runoff, and Paxton only brought in 870,000 votes. So he only got 10,000 more votes than he had the first time. But the number of people who voted was cut more than in half. And so I think that this idea that Paxton got that lift from Trump and that there was momentum there, no, he had a loyal base who came back. That's all it was. It doesn't look like his support grew. So I think pundits who are looking at it saying, oh, now he's on a roll and he got all these people, I don't think the numbers suss that out.
Yeah, it's definitely something when we talk about primaries, I feel like that's where a lot of people go is the idea of who votes in primary elections. And I feel like the vast majority of the time it's people who are motivated, people who have a vested interest in turning out for every election, not just the big ones, essentially.
My prediction will be then, if that is the support that Paxton has, and it really hasn't grown from the primary to the runoff, though some would argue there's so many less voters and it was more numbers and so therefore he's going to get it. The last thing would be that if that's all he can bring in November, then it looks really good for James Tallarico.
Right.
Because we have how many people in Texas?
Right. I'll always be someone who I feel like every election cycle we talk about is this is the year Texas turns blue, so I'm not necessarily holding my breath about this November,
shades
but
of purple. Okay,
we'll
you know
see.
what we're doing on today's show? We got a lot going on today's
do.
show, and I feel like you may be too young to remember this. NBC Saturday night, it was Hurricane Saturday, and a hurricane was hitting the Golden Girls and the cast of Empty Nest and nurses, and it went through the whole evening. Today is our Hurricane Monday show. The storm's gonna hit. We have got quite a show. We're gonna look at hurricane and hurricane preparedness from a group of different directions. We're gonna look at forecast, we're gonna look at the power grid, we're gonna look at preparedness, and we're gonna look at the floodplain maps.
Yeah.
All of that in today's show. So if you want to know hurricane, stick with us. We got a lot. And even if you don't, I guarantee you it'll be entertaining and fun because you got Michael and Ernie sitting in today.
I love it. It's also kind of like a crash course, that when if you are not able to listen to the whole newscast, hey, listen to the commuter cut, go on YouTube, watch the whole video back because this is going to be sort of comprehensive of everything you need to know for hurricane season.
And what I dropped of the lead was hurricane season began today.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. All that said, we'll begin the show in just a moment, but we can't go anywhere without the headlines of the day. Michael, take us in.
All right, a little bit lighter. FIFA has their fan festival in East Downtown, and it's going to be free and open to the public for every single day of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. But if you want a little bit of a more prestigious experience, local organizers are now selling tickets for premium experiences. The FIFA Fan Festival will be 34 days for the World Cup. Every single match is going to be live streamed from there, and it's going to go on for the entirety of the World Cup. A quick fun fact, this isn't in my script, but just so you know, Houston is one of 2 or 3 cities in the entire World Cup that's having a fan festival for every single day of the match. So this is something that the fan festival community is really touting as Houston's singular audience for the World Cup. So
every day of the every match day,
so they're
every day during the time.
Deviating from the script. I knew I shouldn't have said this. Yeah. So the World Cup lasts from June 11th to I believe July 19th. They will have matches early on. There's a match or 2 or 3 every single day. As we start winding down and groups are getting eliminated, teams are getting eliminated, there are a few days where there won't be any matches. So those days the fan festival will be dark.
Not just the matches playing in Houston, but all the World Cup matches.
Every single match.
Okay.
There are 104,
awesome.
I think, matches in the whole. I mean, we'll get to that later on. But 104 matches for the World Cup. These Experiences are now on sale on Ticketmaster. The host committee is selling tickets for what they're calling Club 104. Hence why I saw that in the script. I was like, I know it's 104. Organizers are saying that this is going to have air conditioning, privacy, and complimentary snacks and a cash bar. They're also going to include individual cabana seating options for purchase, and all of these are going to be on Ticketmaster. Tickets are going to vary depending on the match and the turnout for the match. For example, early matches are going to be roughly about $100 with fees included, but the final match by contrast is going to be $236. So those prices are set. I know there's been a lot of discussion about price fluctuation based off of demand and fluctuating demand pricing, that sort of concept with Ticketmaster. I've been told by organizers these prices are set. The only change from match to match is going to be based off of if it's the finals, and there's going to be a lot more people interested in going than, say, just your run-of-the-mill group stage match.
So help me understand this. Oh, well,
yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? Are you willing to pay for a better FIFA experience? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Have you gotten tickets to any matches? If not, are you still planning on going to the fan experience? What are you going to glean out of this 6-week period that's going to happen right here in Houston? Are you getting engaged? Let us know what you think. 713-440-8870. Okay, take me back to this.
Yep.
So when there's a match, you're paying to go to this. It's not like you pay one price and you have it for the whole time that the fans own. It's each day that there's a match, or each match you pay $102. Or
so yes, for the premium experience. So let me take a step back, Ernie.
Okay, I'm confused.
Fan Festival is free. I could wait in line to get in, and they're going to let me in. Obviously, I have to pay for food, for drinks, all that good stuff. But to actually
go into the park area.
Yes.
That's
to actually
downtown.
get in, there's going to be concerts, there's going to be screens everywhere to watch the matches. That is free. First come, first serve. There could be a line. They could have no longer space, but that is free. If I wanted to guarantee my spot for a specific match, and if I wanted sort of an elevated experience
with AC and seating,
that's going to cost me money, and that's based on the match itself. So let's say I want to go to Portugal versus the Democratic Republic of Congo here in Houston. I could pay about $100 for either cabana seating, which is going to be outdoors, but it's in a cabana, you have shade, or sort of this VIP experience at Club 104, also about $100 with drinks and snacks and what have you. And I can guarantee a spot with shade or air conditioning for that match. That's not going to stand for the rest of the matches that may be played throughout the day, but for that match, you could have an elevated experience. So those are really designed for people who, if you're like me, you know you're going to be watching Argentina play, and I want a good spot to watch.
And you're watching these
it.
on screens. You're not seeing the match.
No.
You're here downtown at this park watching it on TV.
Mm-hmm. And so this is for, I think anyone can go. I think the specific folks that they're targeting with this are people who, A, didn't get tickets to the World Cup. If you're like me, you didn't want to pay $1,000 for some of those tickets, or B, you want a good experience to watch matches that aren't in Houston. Argentina's not going to play in Houston, but I really want to have a good time watching them. So I may go to the Fan Festival to watch those matches. Yeah.
I'm interested. You know, I mean, for me, even more so than just watching the match, it's kind of like, to me, going to a music festival.
Yeah.
I don't really need to know who the bands are. I kind of like the experience of it all. And so FanFest is kind of getting me excited. I know that there has been talk of people a little disappointed, might not be the right word, but maybe too strong a word, disappointed. But the feeling that this was sold to us here in Houston as, you love soccer, we're going to have the world of soccer here in Houston. A lot of people that love soccer in the world of soccer can't afford tickets to actually go to the matches. So this does give something back to the community. And I'm curious if people feel this is enough, if they want to do it or not.
Definitely.
Let us know. 713-440-8870. One of our chatters over on YouTube, one of our YouTubers, says, not paying for a FIFA experience, just going to find a good British pub and have a pint with other fans.
There you go.
Very British of you, my British
like
computer guy.
The authentic, World Cup experience. You're just at a pub, at a sports bar, watching the match. I think, it's we don't appreciate soccer as much in the United States, and I think that would be a pretty authentic experience if you're not going to the match itself. Is just being with people at a bar.
What's the soccer show on?
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso. I feel like when I watch them, and they always have those group in the pub, like watching the matches. And
exactly.
That's what I kind of feel like.
As we're talking, I want to flag one thing really quickly for you. As we're talking about prices for tickets and how expensive that is, The Economist newspaper in England just put out an analysis on how much ticket prices have increased for the World Cup finals. It's something like they used to be in 1994. You could go for just a couple $100, and now tickets to the finals are going for $2,000. Yep. So just in the last, 30 years, the
but how
tickets
does that
have gone up
compare to
exponentially.
like Super Bowl tickets?
Ooh, I don't have those numbers in front of me.
We should look into that.
We should look into that.
Okay, but you know what? Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe World Cup isn't on your radar. You know what is on my radar? It's America's 250th birthday. You knew we were going to talk about it. President Trump says he may replace a planned concert series celebrating America's 250th birthday with a political rally of his own. Yep, the idea came after most artists withdrew from the Great American State Fair on Washington's National Mall, citing concerns about the events tied to Trump and his political movement. In a social media post, Trump said he was exploring an America is Back, quote-unquote, rally at the same location and said that he draws bigger crowds than even Elvis. Organizers have since confirmed Trump will headline the opening of the fair next month despite the artist cancellations. There were, I guess, 9 artists announced. And then the first one started to come in to say, you know what, this wasn't exactly what we signed on to. And then the next one and the next one. There are 2 different competing organizations, as I understand it, that both are kind of have a similar name about America's first. It's Freedom 250 and America 250 something.
Right.
And one was very bipartisan in trying to create this. The other one seemed to have come from the White House and was more White House and party organized. And so the artists started dropping out. Martina McBride, as far as I was concerned, was the main headliner, probably the one with the most recent connection into the world of music. And she pulled out also, citing that, her work has never been to be political. It's been America first. No pun intended, and that she believed in keeping America strong and that it's for all people, and that she felt that this concert wasn't exactly what she had been told it was, and that she will continue to tour the U.S. and celebrate America that way. CNC Music Factory were supposed to perform.
Right.
The interesting thing about that is neither C nor C was going to be there, but Freedom Williams, who's the rapper on those songs, he was going to be there. Milli Vanilli were going to perform, but there's only one of them still alive. And as we've pointed out, neither of them sing. So that would be an interesting
Allegedly.
show. Kid Rock, is he on the agenda?
I don't know.
I didn't see. It seems like he would be there.
He's often, he was at the Charlie Kirk memorial tribute from Turning Point halftime show during the Super Bowl.
Vanilla Ice.
Right.
He says he's still going to perform, at least the last time I looked. It's interesting. So what are your thoughts on all these artists pulling out of the Trump concert? And is Trump giving a speech a better option? 713-440-8870. If you've been watching social media over the weekend, a lot of artists were putting up things where they said, I'm dropping out. One that's been shared with me. The Cantina Band just withdrew from Trump's Freedom 2025 concert lineup. That's the group from Star Wars. So it's been funny to watch, and it's become kind of a joke, but it is also sad that for celebrating our 250th, we couldn't pull together in a bipartisan sort of way a celebration with artists. Everything has become so politically charged now that even a concert to celebrate our birthday.
That's kind of one of my takeaways is I feel like we have, just as we talk about how much politics has dominated our social life now, I think you can see that in musicians and celebrities, that if there's almost an expectation that they have to have political opinions and share those political opinions. And there's been some pushback on that I know, Chappell Roan has said, why should you care what I think? I'm a singer. I'm not a politician.
Right.
And I think it's really, I like to put things in, as a chapter in that story. And I feel like this is part of that you have all these artists who say we were promised a sort of bipartisan event. We didn't want to have to make it political. And now that it looks like it is going to be political, we don't want to be a part of that. I think that's really interesting.
Does it push the artist into a political stance? Because it seems as though what the artists are saying as a whole is, we don't want to politicize it. That's why we're stepping out, so we're not caught up in the fray of politics. But by simply doing it, it says, I think it's perceived, they're anti-Trump. And so it is politicizing them. But I don't think that's the intent of what they're saying. I think they're saying, we want to be free of that. We just want to go someplace and play our music without the political trappings that these events are gathering.
Right.
Anyway, 713-440-8870. We were talking about FIFA and the FIFA experience, so let's go to the phones. Jamie from Fulshire is on the line. Jamie, what's on your mind?
Yeah, my thought is the only thing that I'd really like to experience is the Dutch bus and the Dutch parade from Rice to NRG. Otherwise, I have snacks and air conditioning at my house out in Fulshire and don't have to deal with Houston traffic.
Houston traffic, that plays a big part into whether you want to go to this stuff or not. And
Right.
The lines and the heat. I think staying at home and watching it, invite your friends over, make your own snacks, those are free.
To explain what Jamie was talking about, the Netherlands is playing in Houston, and they have a tradition of all of their fans walking to the stadium. And so Houston is preparing for something like that happening, where they're going to have potentially thousands of Netherlands fans coming. And they've got a big orange
Netherlandians?
bus. I think they're called the Dutch.
I like Netherlandians better.
And they're going to bring that big bus. And so that's something that I think a lot of folks are talking about. 713-440-8870. Going back to the America 250 concert, we've got a call from Sam from the 5th Ward. Sam, what do you think of that concert?
Yeah, I think this is a very good thing, and all artists should drop their political affluences and unite and do it. This is the celebration for America's 250th year, and whether it so happens that there's a Republican president and who is very conservative, that doesn't mean the liberals, most of the artists are liberals, they should stay away from it and express their dissatisfaction.
Sam, thanks for calling and sharing. I think, though, that the point isn't that there's a Republican president. It was that I think the trappings surrounding the concert were taking on more of a political party slant than being what you're saying. And I think all the artists thought they were signing on to was simply a nonpartisan Celebrate America. But they were starting to look at the lineup of speakers and things that surrounded around it and who was actually organizing it. And it felt more like Make America Great rally than it did like a 250 America celebration, which I think if it had been totally like the Capitol 4th or something like that I think the artists would have been fine with it. Not speaking on behalf of the artist, but from what I understand. Sam, thanks for calling in and sharing with us. And we continue to want to know what you think about these stories and all the topics of the day. But you know what? It's time to get into that hurricane mindset. Coming up on Hello Houston, the rest of our show is dedicated to the start of hurricane season. And we'll kick it off in the best way possible. Travis Herzog is with us from KTRK, Chief Meteorologist. He's going to share an early view of what we can expect over the next couple of months right here on Hello Houston. This is News 88.7.
Meet Tio Choco. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. This is his story. Visit ridemetro.org/Choco to find out where is Choco.
Foliage with the roads, with the people.
I'm Kai Risdall, Robots on Campus. Next time on Marketplace.
You can listen to Marketplace. It's coming up tonight at 6:30.
I'm Scott Tong. Congress is back in Washington this week. They left town last month without facing close votes on the Iran war and whether to limit President Trump's authority. Democrats hope to force votes on Iran and Trump's anti-weaponization fund that could reward his political friends. Next time, Here and Now.
You can listen to it today at 1 p.m.
There's a movement to push back against the gains of feminism that some are calling masculinism.
But the bit that always I find missing, particularly on the MAGA right, is the idea that if you're strong, you should be a protector. Instead, the version seems to be if you're strong, you should dominate the weak.
Why this idea is gaining ground, that's next time on Think.
Think is on tonight at 11 on News 88.7.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now. Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from St. Luke's Health and the St. Luke's Foundation, supporting clinical excellence, compassionate care, and a healthier future for all. More at supportstlukes.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manous and guest host Michael Adkison.
Well, you know it. Hurricane season is officially underway today, and while early forecasts suggest this year could be less active than average, it only takes one storm to make a serious impact to the region. What can we expect over the next several months, and what should the Gulf Coast residents be watching for this hurricane season? Joining us now to discuss this and a whole lot more is Travis Herzog, Chief Meteorologist for ABC 13. Travis, welcome back to the program.
Hey, great to be here, Ernie. Thanks for having me. And I guess happy hurricane season? Is that what we say? Happy hurricane season?
I think maybe at the end of it, we should say happy hurricane season if we made it through happily. If folks have questions, concerns, if they want some clarity, give us a call right now. We have Travis at our disposal for the next few minutes, so call in 713-440-8870. I guess the best place to start, as we always do in a conversation like this, is what are you seeing for this season?
Well, the primary driver this season is going to be what may end up being a record-strong El Nino developing over the Pacific Ocean. So El Nino is actually what the ocean is doing, but it impacts the atmosphere. And so we are looking at the potential for these record warm waters along the equator from the central Pacific all the way to the eastern Pacific, right up against South America. And that usually makes for a very active East Pacific hurricane season, so the opposite side of Mexico from where Texas is located. And because that usually increases the number of storms there, it shifts the jet stream patterns and the wind shear patterns across the Gulf, the Caribbean, the Atlantic, which usually cuts down on the number of storms and the strength of the storms in a very general sense. So you've seen the forecast and the outlooks from NOAA and other organizations calling for a less active season that is strictly in terms of the number of storms expected to be lower than normal. In a normal season or an average season would be 14 named storms. So we're looking at less storms than that.
And just to be clear with that, just because there are less storms and the majority would be weaker, one anomaly, one big old storm, could that exist within these conditions, and could we still get hit by that?
Absolutely. So the prime local example of that would be a very inactive hurricane season of 1983. There were only 4 storms that formed the entire season, but the A storm was named Alicia, became a Category 3 hurricane, slammed into Galveston and Houston. Okay, so it didn't mean less storms does not translate into no risk. It only takes one storm to make it a bad season. Another example would be 1992. Only 10 named storms formed. The first one is an A storm. It's named Andrew. It was a Category 5 that moved into South Florida near Miami around Homestead and devastated that part of the Florida Peninsula. So even an inactive year in terms of numbers can still have Category 5s, and they can still make landfall and impact us. But what encourages me, Ernie, is that when you look back at the records going all the way to 1950, which is when we have the most reliable data on El Niños and La Niñas and the in-between phase that I jokingly call La Nada, is that there has not been a single hurricane to make landfall in Texas when we have an ongoing El Nino. Alicia came close, but when Alicia made landfall in August of 1983, the El Nino had ended a month before. So when we have El Nino active, usually it protects Texas from hurricanes, but we can still get tropical storms. An example of that would be the Super El Nino that started in 2015. In June of 2015, we had Tropical Storm Bill make landfall near Matagorda Bay and dropped over a foot of rain southwest of Houston.
To just stick with the science a little bit, what I have trouble understanding is if the conditions, if the water and all are in a certain place that doesn't generate or traditionally doesn't generate a strong storm, how would one fall through the cracks? If the science is saying with the water and the wind shears and all of this, whatever goes into play, how does one break through? Wouldn't they all be the same?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the overall pattern is more hostile, but that doesn't mean that there won't be breaks here and there where the wind shear may relax at just the right moment to allow a storm to form. Now, the odds of being impacted by a storm in a season like this one, Ernie, is when a storm develops close to land. We're probably not going to see many of those really long-lived storms that start near the coast of Africa and trek across the Atlantic. Or if we do, they'll get torn apart by wind shear or steered away because of the hostile conditions. But we sometimes will refer to these homegrown developments. A storm that forms just a day or two before making landfall. There can be little pockets of during the season where you get just the right conditions to allow a storm to spin up, and it'll try to go before it makes landfall.
Travis, as we're talking about this, I think we're talking about that there's less of a chance of a greater number of storms. There are going to be fewer storms, in other words. That's what the trends are looking towards. Is there a moment where you think people should let their guard down? Or what are the biggest misconceptions you think where people are watching that we need to be looking out for?
Yeah, the first misconception is something like, oh, it's just a tropical storm, or oh, it's just a Category 1 hurricane, right? Because we can get massive floods from tropical storms. This is the 25-year anniversary this week of Tropical Storm Allison making landfall in Houston and kind of not going away, looping around and hanging around and dumping over 30 inches in parts of town. So any tropical threat, any tropical system is hauling in just a ton of moisture, and a lot of energy comes in along with that. And so we have to take every storm seriously, but every storm is going to pose a different risk. And so you can't say, well, Harvey did this to my house, so I'll be fine with this one. It doesn't really work like that. Every storm leaves its unique fingerprint, and based on how strong it is and where it moves, may interact with your property differently than a previous storm did. Another misconception has to do with the length of hurricane season here in Texas. So typically in Texas, when we get to mid-October, if we are storm-free, we can breathe a cautious sigh of relief. Hurricane season technically still runs until the end of November, but in modern times, we have not had a hurricane make landfall in Texas beyond mid-October, and that has to do with the seasonal change. We get into fall, the fronts start coming down, the jet stream pattern changes. But what I'm looking forward to this season, when we get to September and October, what typically happens in one of these strong El Nino years is you get really big hurricanes that form in the Pacific off the coast of Mexico, and those start getting scooped up by the jet stream, and all that moisture comes across Mexico into Texas. So right now, I'm anticipating a greater than normal risk of a very wet fall, September, October timeframe, because of those recurving storms in the Pacific. So I think our threats this year are going to be a little different than in past seasons. And what I'm looking to locally is usually June, July is kind of the window for something to sneak into Texas in an El Nino type year. So a tropical depression, a tropical storm, wouldn't completely rule out a hurricane, but that's what I'm kind of looking for these next few weeks. And if we can get through June, July without any issues, we're probably not going to see anything threaten us here in Texas. I say probably because I don't want to completely shut the door on that possibility, but that's kind of how I'm envisioning this season is going to evolve, at least for us locally along the Texas coastline.
I want to remind everyone we're talking with Travis Herzog, who's the chief meteorologist for ABC 13, and he has promised to entertain your calls and questions. If you want to give us a call, 713-440-8870. I want to go back to a term you used a minute ago just to help more fully explain to our listeners, homegrown storms. Talk a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, there's a few different ways that hurricanes can develop, and the primary way that happens is an area of low pressure called a tropical wave forms over the African continent and then travels across the Atlantic. Those are kind of like the embryos or the seeds for future storms. That's the primary pathway that storms form, but there are also ones that can form close to land, and they don't necessarily require a tropical wave to develop. These are the kinds of systems, though, that take a little bit longer to develop. They need a little more time. Sometimes it could be an upper low in the upper atmosphere that gradually works its way down to the water. And those are usually more lopsided, weaker storms. So they usually don't attain hurricane status, but sometimes they can. But when we refer to homegrown storms specifically, it's something that forms basically right off the coastline. A local example of that, if y'all can remember, a lot of people have forgotten that we even had a hurricane in September of 2021 named Nicholas. It kind of formed right off the Texas coastline and then made landfall. We had a hurricane named Umberto in 2007 that literally in 18 hours went from nothing to making landfall on the Bolivar Peninsula as almost a Category 2 hurricane. So we can get these rapid spin-ups just a few miles offshore, and that's what we're going to be on guard against this year. The problem with that is it doesn't give us a whole lot of time to prepare, like a storm like Ike. When we tracked Ike for almost 2 weeks before it hit us, right? These form very quickly, and so you don't have as much time to prepare by the time the threat is fully realized. And that's why it's important that we always prepare the same, no matter what the season calls for. We want to treat every season as if one's coming, and if it doesn't, we celebrate at the end of hurricane season. It's
funny because I would think, and it shows you because I have no meteorological training, but that if it's coming across from Africa, it has time to gather all of this moisture and all of this strength and all of that. So I would think a homegrown would always be weaker and smaller because it doesn't have any time to grow. But I guess that's not accurate.
That's not always the case, but normally the homegrown ones are on the weaker side because they do take more time. But there are certain cases, usually it involves a tropical wave that's made it all the way across, and it's just kind of been dormant until it hits the Gulf. That's when you can get a situation like Harvey that spins up from nothing to making landfall as a Cat 4 3 days later. In fact, a little interesting tidbit of trivia is that every Cat 5 that has made landfall along the U.S. coastline was a tropical depression or storm 3 days before it made landfall. So the Gulf can just microwave these storms if it's built off of a tropical wave. If it's those other methods, then it really doesn't have the time to get its act together.
Travis, I know you don't have a crystal ball, and you can't tell us when we're going to expect these storms.
I actually do have a crystal ball.
All right.
Thank God.
Tell us about it. Tell us your plans. Give us a timeline.
All right, what do you want to know?
I'm curious, what are you going to be watching for as we get into the summer? You even mentioned October, November, and as I'm hearing that, I'm like, November, a hurricane in November? That sounds wild. But tell me what you're going to be watching for as we head through the hurricane season.
Sure. So June, July, I'm looking for the potential of a tropical depression or a tropical storm in the Western Gulf. That's usually our primary threat in a El Nino type year, is an early season lopsided tropical depression, tropical storm. That'd be this next 8 weeks. Once we get to the meat of hurricane season, I expect that the Pacific side of Mexico is going to be going gangbusters with storms, and that's going to create so much wind shear over the Gulf it'll be hostile to the storms, or if they do get in the Gulf, they'll probably get steered away from Texas. So I'm not as concerned during the typical peak of the hurricane season of us being impacted by anything directly. And then once we get to September, October, that's when I'm paying closer attention to those storms that form on the Pacific side of Mexico, because those can get scooped up by low pressure systems and the jet stream winds and send their rains across Texas. And if there happens to be a front that comes down and combines with that tropical moisture, you can get some really big floods. Some of our listeners here may remember the San Jacinto floods back in 1994 of the San Jacinto River. That was caused by a stalled front and these Pacific hurricanes feeding it moisture. So that's something we'll be looking out for when we get into the fall. And then usually by mid-October, if no storm has made landfall in Texas, we're in the clear. The season still runs 6 more weeks through the second half of October through November, but usually at that point we're looking more for things in the Caribbean or the East Coast of the United States to be impacted at that point, because the steering winds push things away from us. So that's kind of my roadmap for the season ahead.
Talking about predicting hurricanes, and speaking of hurricanes, and it's always tied in with wind speed and all of that, wind shear. Are we doing a disservice when we talk about hurricanes in that way? As you just pointed out, it's the flooding, it's the water that often causes a great more deal of damage over a period of time than the initial impact of the wind of the storm. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that the Hurricane Center has made a lot of adjustments over the years, because they realize that you can't just define it by a single number category, and that tells you everything you need to know about the hurricane, right? Hurricane Ike was just a Category 2, but it sent a 15 to 20-foot wall of storm surge water into the Bolivar Peninsula and devastated Crystal Beach and Gilchrist. Mm-hmm. And then you had a storm like Harvey that we didn't get the wind part of Harvey. We got the outer rain bands that stuck over us and sat for 4 days, and we had 30 to 40 inches across the city of Houston, almost a year's worth of rain in just 5 days. And because of the high rain rates that we get and how flat we are, flooding is our primary natural disaster here in Southeast Texas. That water just has nowhere to go. And so that is definitely something we always have to be concerned about. So what we like to do at ABC 13 is whenever a storm is approaching, we like to break down the 4 risks that a hurricane poses and where we expect those risks to be greatest. So that'd be your wind speeds, that'd be the storm surge that moves when the Gulf waters get pushed ashore along the coast. We also have the rainfall, which we sometimes refer to as inland flooding. And then we also have tornadoes. So we kind of break it down into those 4 categories. These are the risks, and these are where those risks are greatest. And your intuition is right, Ernie. When you think about the number of people who are dying from tropical systems, and if you look at the numbers, about 90% of fatalities that are directly caused by the storm are because of water, drowning in the storm surge, drowning in a flash flood because you drove, through an underpass that was 20 feet deep. Only about 9% are directly from the winds, and then 1% would be from tornadoes.
So then
a lot of us are afraid of the wind, but it's the water that's killing people.
To throw a wet blanket over this whole conversation, then we say we may not get a lot of hurricanes this season or very strong ones. Could we get tropical storms that just sit over us and just flood? And so we could still see a very rough season in that regard as opposed to having hurricanes.
That is certainly a possibility. We hope it doesn't happen, but yes, we could definitely see some flash flooding. And you've kind of noticed the past few months, things have gotten really wet around here. Mm-hmm. It's the pattern that's set up. The atmosphere is wanting to throw wet systems our way, whether it comes from a tropical storm or not. We're definitely going to be dealing with the potential for some flash flooding through much of June, and then I think again once we get into the fall.
Really quickly, as I let you go, this weekend is Pride weekend. Give us a little forecast. What are we looking for already?
Yeah, so this weekend we do have tropical moisture coming in, and so we are looking at some scattered downpours coming through. The good news is that usually these scattered downpours, when they're tropical in nature, they start popping up around midday, so in that kind of noon to 3 p.m. time frame, it starts raining heavily scattered around town. But then because they're driven by the heat of the day, by the time we get to the evening time, usually we're rain cooled and we're kind of done with the rain. So hopefully the timing works out for everyone and all the plans that are going on this weekend.
Well, let's hope that crystal ball proved accurate this time. Travis, thank you so much for joining us as always.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Thanks. Travis Herzog is the chief meteorologist for ABC 13. Okay, coming up, grid resiliency during hurricane season. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Meet Gamola, songwriter, world-class violinist, and award-winning multi-genre artist. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. Visit ridemetro.org/Gamola to learn more about his ride.
Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a few minutes to make a big difference. Become a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate. Or call 888-909-0887.
Across Africa, U.S. funding of HIV/AIDS programs is being changed dramatically. And in Mozambique, doctors are battling the disease alongside big infrastructure challenges, like access to electricity and water.
Water and power are still struggling in the country. It's still a huge problem.
I'm Juana Summers, the fragile state of Mozambique's AIDS treatment, on All Things Considered from NPR News.
It's coming up today at 3.
Houston Matters highlights the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. And we do it live on the air weekday mornings at 9 on News 88.7. But we know you're not always available then to listen. So subscribe to our podcast wherever you get yours, or find each day's program to stream online at your leisure at houstonpublicmedia.org. And reach out with questions or comments anytime. Email us at talk@houstonmatters.org.
From the ocean floor to the edge of the universe, PBS Science and Nature documentaries are here. Stream anytime on HPM Plus. Search HPM Plus on your smart and connected TVs.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manous and guest host Michael Adkison.
As we enter hurricane season, one concern that's on the minds of many Houstonians during this time of year is whether we'll lose power if a storm hits, particularly for an extended period of time, which hundreds of thousands of Houston area residents will remember after Hurricane Beryl hit nearly 2 years ago. Last month, CenterPoint conducted its annual full-scale emergency response exercise in preparation for this year's hurricane season. And to tell us more about how CenterPoint is preparing for hurricane season, we are joined again by Nathan Brownell, Vice President of Resilience and Capital Delivery at CenterPoint. Nathan, welcome back to Hello Houston.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to start off preliminarily, tell us about what CenterPoint is doing today as we're heading now into hurricane season.
Sure. So when we think about hurricane season, June 1st is the official kickoff of the season here in Houston. But for CenterPoint, we consider this a year-round activity. So all year round, we are training. We have over 800 employees that have been putting in hours on the incident command system and really doing FEMA training. So we think about 25,000 plus hours of training from those employees over the last couple of years, really focused on how do we coordinate, how do we get customers back on as quickly and safely as possible. I've been on the show to talk about the Greater Houston Resiliency Initiative and what we're doing day in and day out to try to harden and modernize our system. We've installed over 65,000 hurricane-resistant poles, trimmed over 10,000 high-risk vegetation, added over 600 smart relay systems. All of this is really our commitment to our customers to get a system that is going to be able to withstand a punch, but if you do have an outage, we'll be able to get your customers' lights on much quicker before.
You talk about that commitment to your customers, and I know we are 2 years nearly removed from Hurricane Beryl. There are still many Houstonians who, have almost the PTSD from that experience. Tell me about that promise that you're making to your customers. What are you telling them as we're heading into hurricane season about what you can commit to?
So two things is one, we're ready. We've been preparing for hurricane season. We're ready for whatever comes our way this year. But the second part is, the investments that we're making within our community are making a difference. I talked about the 65,000 poles that we've installed since 2024. Last year, we saw over 100 million less outage minutes across our system. So on average, customers had about 30 minutes per customer of less outages than the year before. This year, we're on our way to providing another 50 million minutes of less customer outages. So not only are we prepared for the hurricane season this year, but the things that we're doing daily are making an impact to our day-to-day lives of our customers. So I just really want to reiterate is we're ready and we're going to keep focused on being prepared.
Sean, there are people listening that are going to think, oh, wow, 30 less minutes of outages, an hour less of outages when they went maybe a week without power. That doesn't seem like a big change. Talk a little bit about how quickly power can be restored, and also and I know we've talked about this before, a little of the challenges you face in restoring power, why it takes the amount of time it does.
Sure. So after any type of large event, it's really a process of trying to understand the impact of the system. And so we're rolling crews in from outside of the Houston area. So they may be coming from Canada or Louisiana or Missouri or wherever. We're bringing crews in. So we're starting our damage assessment, understanding where the outages are and the damage associated, and bringing those non-native Houston crews to be able to fix those. And so it's kind of a process to do that. And so as we talk about hardening the system, we're really building a system that can withstand those types of high risk events. So extreme winds, the flooding, the vegetation that could potentially come in. And so all of these investments that we're making is really trying to minimize those potential outages. Or if we do have those types of outages, we can get customers back on much, much quickly.
Okay, I live in the city. I'm listening to all of this. What would you say I need to do to ensure that I'm going to have the most peaceful experience during hurricane season? What should I be thinking about in this regard? And on the flip side of it, what are you folks thinking about right now in regards to all of this?
Sure. So For our customers, I always encourage them to sign up for our Power Alert service. It's a free tool that gives them personalized information if they do have an outage on estimated restoration times. So that's I would encourage customers to sign up for that. If they have questions about outages duration or who's impacted, we have our cloud-based outage tool that you can go on and see across the whole system how many customers are out in our process there. And then when I think about just generally being prepared, encourage our customers, make sure, they have a plan. So, you have your water, batteries charged, all those things that you're getting prepared for those type of events. For CenterPoint, what are we doing to be prepared for this? We're focused on it's continued, looking out ahead of us. We have our in-house meteorology team now. We have a seasoned emergency preparedness response organization. We're going to continue to drill, continue to train. We're going to continue to look ahead and be prepared. And so as we start to see any type of system that are moving into our area that could pose a risk, we're going to be prepared. We're going to start to get the resources, the materials, and make sure that we can quickly and safely respond to any type of event that our customers may experience.
And I am sorry, Nathan. I think I called you Sean in the last one. I was reading a question coming in, and I slipped over there and called you by the wrong name. But we are talking with Nathan Brownell, who is the Vice President of Resilience and Capital Delivery at CenterPoint, and we're taking your calls and questions at 713-440-8870. A question that's coming through on our chat group over on YouTube is about AI data centers and concerned about the drain that's doing. What are we misunderstanding about that, and what should we be concerned with when it comes to making sure we all have enough power?
Sure. So this is things that we hear a lot brought up from different customers. There is a formal process that any new customer, whether it's advanced manufacturing or it's a AI center, anybody, they have to go through a formal process with our Texas regulators, the Public Utility Commission, and really they work through how those loads are come onto our system. We actually don't have any sort of control over which systems come onto here in Houston. Our role is really to supply power to our customers. We take the power from the generators and we bring it to our customers as safely and efficiently as possible, and it is as affordable as possible. That's really our focus.
713-440-8870 is the number. We've got a call from Cindy in Northeast Houston to talk about tree cutting. Cindy, let us know your thoughts.
Well, good morning, and thank you for taking my call. I wanted to find out how can I tell if the tree cutting area is my particular area. So is it by zip code, and if so, how can I check that?
Nathan?
Sure. So if you have any questions on whether the tree clearing or not is your responsibility versus CenterPoint's, please reach out to us. We can confirm whether it's something that is on our end that we need to clear, or if it's not, that we're not the right utility company to be able to help with that. We can ensure that we can give you that answer. So please reach out to us.
So I guess as we come to the end of this conversation, what's keeping you up at nights right now?
So what's keeping me up at night is the thought that we're going to get hit by a hurricane at some point here in Houston, and it's really making sure we do as much as we can every day to be prepared. So every second is an opportunity to harden the system, to have additional training, to leverage the technology tools that we're starting to use to better predict the weather that's coming, all of those. And it's really focused on the next event because it's coming at some point. Houston is one of the most high risk counties in the United States for extreme weather. It's going to happen at some point. So it's on our team to be ready and be prepared. So it's really keeping focused on ensuring that we provide the level of service that our customers expect.
Nathan, thank you as always, and I'm sure you'll be available to us throughout the season as we need you, as you always have been.
Thank you.
Nathan Brownell is the Vice President of Resilience and Capital Delivery at CenterPoint. And coming up, we're going to continue to talk about hurricane season, but we also have the headlines at the top of the hour. So don't go anywhere. Michael and I will be right back. You're listening to Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider that's been caring for hardworking Texans for over 30 years. More at texasmutual.com/expert partner.
Slight chance of rain this afternoon. We'll get up to about 91. Currently partly cloudy, and it's 90. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, a federal appeals court has lifted a block on a Texas law that gives state police the power to arrest and deport people suspected of illegally crossing the southern border. We'll discuss this and more of today's top headlines. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm guest host Houston Public Media reporter Michael Adkison. We'll also discuss how families can prepare for storm season without breaking the bank with the Chief Impact Officer for the Greater Houston Community Foundation.
Plus, Emily Woodell, the Chief External Affairs Officer for the Harris County Flood Control District, will discuss the new floodplain maps and flood mitigation plans for hurricane season.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Iran says it is suspending talks via mediators with the U.S. over Israeli military operations in Lebanon and in Gaza. Israel has continued to bomb South Lebanon and the southern suburbs of Beirut, considered Hezbollah strongholds, even though a ceasefire was reached in April. Here's NPR's Hadil Al-Shalchi.
The semi-official Iranian news agency, Tasnim, which is associated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said that Tehran was demanding the end of what it called the aggressive and brutal Israeli army operations in Gaza and Lebanon. It also called for the complete withdrawal of Israeli military forces from Lebanon. Iran said that unless those conditions were fulfilled, talks with the U.S. to end the war would halt. There was no immediate confirmation from senior Iranian officials that messages, mostly relayed via Pakistan, between the warring parties were being suspended. The U.S. and Iran said last week they were close to a tentative 60-day ceasefire extension and framework to start talks to end the war, but the agreement is waiting on President Trump's approval. Hadil Al-Shalchi, NPR News.
With rising gas prices, an unpopular war in Iran, and affordability concerns top of mind, American voters say they are unhappy with Republican leadership. NPR's Stephen Fowler has this report on the party's effort to explain why they should stay in power.
There's roughly 5 months to go until the November general election, and the GOP message is mixed at best. At a campaign event in Iowa last month, Vice President Vance said the election
is actually not any specific question of public policy.
But voters disagree. Polls show Americans have soured on multiple Trump administration policies. At a cabinet meeting last week, President Trump touted policies like a prescription drug savings program as proof his administration was working. But in a defense of the Iran war, he also said,
I don't care about the midterms.
The next set of midterm primaries Tuesday include key races in Iowa and California. Stephen Fowler, NPR News.
New Jersey officials say several protesters were arrested overnight for ignoring a curfew at Newark's Delaney Hall. The Immigration Detention Center has been the site of days of clashes between law enforcement officers and protesters over allegedly poor facility conditions. This morning on NPR, Democratic Senator Cory Booker spoke of outside agitators, but stopped short of accusing them of inciting violence in the first place.
We have a lot of people from the Proud Boys to Greg Bovino coming from outside of our state to try to escalate violence and conflict in front of the facility and distract from the moral urgency of this facility that should be closed.
That's Democratic Senator Cory Booker on NPR's Morning Edition. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. The Texas Rangers have launched a criminal investigation into a pair of Houston police officers accused of secretly placing GPS trackers on a suspect's vehicle without a warrant. Multiple outlets report the investigation centers around potential crimes of criminal oppression and unlawful installation of a tracking device. 2 people who were under investigation by the FBI captured the moment the tracking device was illegally put on the car in the camera. Both officers initially denied involvement in the case. HPD has declined comment on the ongoing investigation. Local organizers and residents called for better disaster preparedness and recovery during a town hall in Houston's 5th Ward over the weekend. The hearing came as the city gears up for hurricane season. Amy Zachmeyer is a local organizer.
People love to say that Houston is resilient, and we are resilient, but resilience is only a virtue when you're forced to need it.
Community members spoke on their experiences surviving extreme weather in Texas, advocating for more resilient infrastructure and government funding for disaster recovery. Taking a look at your weather. Mostly sunny today with a 20% chance of rain this afternoon, a high of 91. Tonight, it's going to be partly cloudy with a low around 77 with light winds. And taking a look at Tuesday, we'll have a 40% chance of showers, mainly after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Otherwise, it's going to be mostly sunny with a high of 91 degrees. We'll see heat index values as high as 101. Right now, it's partly cloudy, 90 degrees on the UH campus. Get more of your news and information. Go to HoustonPublicMedia.org. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Schwab, where investors have a range of choices to pursue investing goals, from self-directed investing to full-service wealth management, all in one place. More at schwab.com. This is NPR.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous.
And not just Ernie Manous, it's Mondays with Michael.
Mondays with Michael. That's the new name now. Mondays with Michael.
Michael Adkison is in with us. Michael is a reporter here at Houston Public Media. Covers a lot of interest. Very big on space. Covered a lot of our space.
Sports.
Very big on FIFA and what's going on with World Cup. What else is on your agenda?
What else is on my agenda? We were just talking about, we haven't done anything on this yet, so here's a little sneak preview. Well, so we were talking about Pride is this weekend, and I was talking with my editor, and we were talking about doing a story about what that means with all the crackdowns on LGBTQ representation, the rainbow crosswalks and those being removed, what Pride looks like as we're entering this sort of new era of, crackdowns on representation and queer voices. So, very early, we literally talked about that this morning, but that's one story that we're looking at that you can look for.
A point to bring up also, people are used to Pride Houston happening at the end of June. This year they moved it up. It's this coming weekend, June 6th is going to be the parade and the Pride Fest. And one of the reasons for it is with FIFA coming in, there's going to be so much with the city going on with that they wanted to move it to a clear. But they've talked a lot about moving Pride, and it'll be interesting to see if people turn out for it. Is that going to now open the conversation of moving Pride further away and maybe into the fall, which a lot of places have done that are in a place like us?
Right.
I'm a traditionalist. It's supposed to celebrate the Stonewall riots. That's where it started. That was the end of June. I'm kind of a traditionalist.
A traditionalist.
A traditionalist when it comes to Pride parades. Now, just like I am with St. Patrick's Day parades, should be around St. Patrick's Day.
You would think. You would think
Thanksgiving Day parade should
be on Thanksgiving.
Nobody says, but it's cold out. Let's move Thanksgiving to May.
No, but another thing that's happening this weekend, moving on. Another thing that's happening in this weekend that I will be at, going back to FIFA, is a friendly match in College Station. Argentina and Honduras are playing at Kyle Field at Texas A&M this Saturday. They're calling it the Road to 26. leading just a tournament of friendly matches before the World Cup. And Argentina, of course, is the reigning champions in the World Cup. So, those tickets I've looked are going for $100 or $1,000, if not more. And here at Texas A&M, they're like $200. So it is still
a FIFA event, or is it something
it's not
outside
FIFA.
of
It's not FIFA. It's just leading up to the World Cup, a lot of the teams still want to play and have their muscle memory in place and everything like that. And so a lot of them are doing friendlies leading up to the actual World Cup. And so there's one that's happening here in the U.S. called the Road to 26, and it's going to be at College Station.
Well, that's a great tip for folks that want to go see these matches of this caliber of team, but can't afford it or can't get tickets to World Cup.
That's me. You're talking about me. We wanted to go to Argentina, and we couldn't afford to go to Dallas, and we saw that they're playing in College Station and said, hey, let's do it. So, yeah, just an hour and a half away.
We're always talking about you one way or the other, Michael. Don't you
One
worry.
way or always, it's FIFA. It all comes back to FIFA these days.
Well, the other thing comes back to is hurricane season has begun. It is yet upon us. And so today we are focusing the show on getting you best prepared. We've talked with CenterPoint already today, and we've talked about the forecast coming up. Well, in this hour, we're going to talk to you about being prepared. Oftentimes, I think people resist it. They feel like, well, it's kind of a gamble and it's expensive. We're going to hopefully give you some cost-effective ways to be prepared. I'll give you my favorite tip. Every time you go to the store or go by a dollar store, go in and get a couple gallons of water and just store them away wherever you can in the house, because you don't have to buy the expensive gallons of water. Dollar stores have them for $1.
Well, it's like $1.25.
Yeah,
we both knew.
And then a little bit later in the show, we're going to take a look at the floodplain maps. And I think if you live in the Houston area, you don't have a lot of faith in those to begin with. You figure you live in Houston, the whole thing is a floodplain.
Right.
But we're going to find out, what do the maps mean? What's your input into them? It's an interesting area to look at. So that's still to come on today's show. You were just talking about the match. I think somebody misunderstood what you said. You said $1,000 to go to a friendly game? No, I think you misheard him.
I probably misspoke. It's $1,000 to go see Argentina play in the World Cup. For $200 or so, even less if you want to sit in the nosebleeds. I think it was like $80 when I was looking at prices last night when we bought tickets. You can see Argentina play. So anywhere from $80 to, I think we have seats that are a little bit off center, but on the ground ish. And I think tickets were like $200 a piece.
So does Alexis get into it as much as you do? Does she enjoy it, or is it she's going with you because she's with you?
So the way that I've convinced Alexa to go is that I'm big on singular experiences. When else are we going to say we saw Argentina play?
Oh, I thought you meant you were going to go alone.
No. She's coming with me.
home.
I'm dragging her. No, the way that I'm like, when else are we going to see Argentina play? Because we're not going to the World Cup. We can't afford that. Right. So it's like, they're here in America. They're the reigning champions. Let's go see them. And my mom's from Argentina, so it's a big, we get to, my whole mom's side of the family from Argentina, immigrated here. Mm-hmm.
Well, good to know. We'll talk more about that later. But right now, it's time to get into the news of the day. What have you got now for me, Michael?
All right. News from on Friday. A sweeping 2023 Texas immigration law that lets state authorities arrest and deport people suspected of having illegally crossed the U.S.-Mexico border can go into effect after a federal appeals court on Friday lifted a lower court's stoppage of certain provisions. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals issued an unpublished order after the Attorney General, Ken Paxton's office, appealed the lower court's decision on May 14th, which had blocked most of the law. It's very confusing, but now this law is taking effect after that Friday ruling, which clears the law in its entirety to go into effect. This was Senate Bill 4 from a couple of years ago, and it's part of a lawsuit that was filed by several civil rights groups, tongue twister there, contending parts of the landmark immigration law are unconstitutional. In a statement, they are calling that decision disappointing and out of step with the Constitution and the unbroken practice of other courts. It's a lot of seesawing. I know that's been the conversation of whether the law takes effect or not. It is in effect as of that Friday ruling. What are your thoughts on SB 4, this very controversial immigration law being back in play? In your opinion, what do you think of its constitutionality, and what role should law enforcement have when it comes to immigration here in Texas? Ernie, this was a very controversial law back when I worked in Austin. This was kind of the policy that was being discussed, and I really think it's notable that it hasn't, the direction that immigration policy has taken in the last couple of years, this is almost on the back burner. We haven't really been talking about SB4 as much, but this was sort of the conversation in Texas a couple of years ago when it was signed by the legislature, because it is, on track. I think the Supreme Court is going to have to weigh in on this, on whether or not local law enforcement has the authority to arrest people based on their immigration status. That's something that's been traditionally given to the federal authorities, but this could let local law enforcement do something like that. So, it could set up for a Supreme Court battle.
The part that stands out to me the most is the term suspected.
Yeah.
It's like, so what do you need to be valid in going after someone? Can you just have an assumption, unless I'm misunderstanding this? If it's, we feel that there's concern here that they may be, then we can arrest. Where isn't it usually, traditionally, you need proof of before you can act on that? Now, some would probably argue, but that's what the court case is for, is to prove it, and that in all times we arrest people because we suspect they have done something,
right?
And it's not till the court case.
That certainly was the concern of Democrats and immigration advocates back in 2023 when this first passed and was signed into law, that this is going to lead to indiscriminate racial profiling, because you can say you had probable cause to arrest someone because they appeared to be or suspected to be.
You suspected.
Exactly. But I think you bring up a good point that, the due process through all of this, that, that is how the law works. Law enforcement arrests people because they suspect them of doing something. We don't know. That's what a trial is for.
Right.
But, it does raise all these ethical concerns. I think that the biggest question here is again, there's that Supreme Court. I think they're going to have to weigh in on this. And what are they going to decide? Will, say, Houston Police, the Harris County Sheriff's Office, will they have the authority themselves to arrest someone based solely on their immigration status? That, has historically been for the federal government. Supreme Court has ruled that it lies with the federal government, not with local law enforcement, but the court has changed. What will they say about this?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The story that rings in my ears whenever I think about this, my mom had a caregiver of Mexican origin who was legally here in the country, but she used to take my mom when mom would get a little agitated. She'd take her to Walmart, and they'd walk around Walmart, and then mom sees all the kids and has to talk to them all, and she loves that. And this particular caregiver said, I don't feel comfortable taking your mom with me out there because I don't know what's going to happen to me. I don't know if someone's going to stop me, if they're going to arrest me because my background is Mexican. And so then what happens to your mom if they do that? And it was a concern. And I never thought, we're born and bred American, been here forever. I never thought about this, but it touches a lot of lives, even outside of those who are immediately affected by it. And when you remove the sense of validity to the arrest, that it's now could fall into the categories of assumption or thoughts or reaction to, it gets even more worrisome. Not to say that it's a problem because now it could touch my life. I'm saying in all aspects, there are many ways we don't think about it where it does touch people's lives.
Right. It definitely certainly has wide-reaching effects. And, again, the way that we, approach what it means to suspect someone of something that you don't know until they produce proof of their citizenship or what have you. And then you do get into, questions of racial profiling and discrimination. It makes me think of the recent Supreme Court decision that a lot of critics said opens the door to more racial profiling, that law enforcement can stop somebody because they suspect them of, being non-citizens. So, this is maybe just another piece into that conversation, and the Supreme Court obviously opened the door with that. I think, again, it is just a huge question of what can law enforcement do in that scenario? Can they actually detain someone because they're not an American citizen? What does that look like? How does that look like in practice? How is that going to play into our conversations with FIFA and things that are happening in the short term? So just a lot of big questions surrounding this.
Nicole Joe says over on YouTube, sounds like textbook racial profiling. What I hope, though, is that with this policy, law, movement, that what also comes with it is better training for our law enforcement officers to understand what it means to suspect someone of something, that it's not just you have an inkling, or that they have policy and procedure in place that explains what it is to make you suspect someone of it, that there needs to be more than just, and I don't know, there could be, and the training could be there, but I would think enhanced training would help. And I think I don't like the idea of this, but when we talk more broadly about it, all arrests are they suspect you of doing something. So it just becomes a bit of a lightning rod when it's around immigration, I think.
Right. And I also think that I'm never someone who looks into a crystal ball when it comes to the Supreme Court, but I do think that this is one that ultimately, one way or the other, is going to be decided by them. I think that the Supreme Court is going to have to be the one to make the determination on whether or not that law can go into effect, what that looks like in practice. I think it would be up to them.
Moving on to another story, but remember, we are interested in what you have to say. Give us a call or text 713-440-8870. Okay, more than 800,000 Texans may have been affected by a cybersecurity breach involving the Carnival Corporation. Runs all the Carnival cruise ships. The company says I love this story, though, because it's such a human story.
Right.
An employee was tricked through a social engineering scam, allowing an unauthorized person to access a limited portion of its computer network. Carnival has begun notifying affected customers whose personal information may have been exposed in the April incident. The breach is particularly notable in Texas, where Carnival operates 4 ships out of Galveston and plans to add another in 2028. The company says it has strengthened security measures and continues to investigate the incident. What are your thoughts on this breach? Did you hear from Carnival? Were you one of the folks that was in the breach? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. I just got a brand new phone, and so I've been installing all of my apps again and all that. And almost every time I put in my email and my password, I get a notice. There has been a breach, and this has been taken. We suggest you change your password, and I haven't done it yet. I am a Carnival goer, or have been, and been on a lot of Carnival cruises. I'm sure I'm in this breach. I have not received anything, though, from Carnival saying I was in the breach. But it makes me think maybe I have to stop and go back and reset all these passwords. And I think we should probably all do that periodically.
I mean, as you said, it's a human story. We all roll our eyes whenever we have to, do those cybersecurity trainings and, I have another training I have to do. I have to change my password for the umpteenth time in the last year, but there's a good reason for that.
Well, and also the human story of it is that an employee was duped by somebody else, presenting themselves as someone they weren't to get information they needed and got access. I think we're all susceptible to that. And then to hear in a corporation it happens too, because it's still people, and we can all be tricked and triggered. I was watching a story on the news the other day about how they have, through AI, done voice models off. All they need is a text message or a piece of audio of someone to create an entire vocabulary or speaking bot. And that this woman that was complaining about it, she got a call, she thought, from her daughter. And her daughter was telling her, "Mom, I've been taken. I need this. Help me." And her mom went to send the money. Ugh. Because it was her daughter's voice, but it was all AI. It was all generated. So they're getting very sophisticated out there. Big note, whenever you feel that somebody calls you and you're not sure about it, I don't know what you do in the case of it's your child. You hang up the phone, you call your child. If you get a call about anything you're supposed to do when it comes to your finances, you hang up and then you call back the organization yourself at the number you know is real, and then they can walk you through it. If your bank will never call you in that regard, you call the number on the back of your bank card and ask them if there has been a breach. That's just a little tip to help you.
We're pivoting away a little bit from the original Carnival thing, but on your note about protecting your privacy and artificial intelligence, it makes me think that if you hadn't heard this, Anthropic, which has Claude, they have a new model called the Dario model that they're quietly rolling out to high-level organizations and government officials first, so that they can look at this model and determine how to prepare themselves from hackers and things like that, because they say this model is so sophisticated that it could, in dangerous hands, do something that it shouldn't, essentially. And so they're giving it, before they give it to the general public, they're giving it to government. I believe it's the Department of Defense they've given it to say, hey, we're putting this out eventually. Prepare for it, essentially. So it, as you talked about artificial intelligence, we're kind of in a new age of how easy it is to scam people.
But I feel so much safer knowing it's going to our Department of Defense. They'll take good care of it. No worry there. Chef Rob writes in our chat group, "You mean password 1234 is a bad password?" Laugh out loud. I'm like, oh, he's got my password somehow. No, yeah. Be creative with it. It doesn't always have to be a complete randomness of numbers and stuff, but pick something that nobody would think of, a particularly odd word and some numbers and some characters that you may remember. But the other thing, and I hate to even do this myself, do different ones for different things. Don't use the same password across the board. I did that for many years, and that is a recipe for disaster.
I love these tips with Ernie. Tech tips with Ernie.
Tech tips with Ernie. They're the most basic tech tips you'll get anywhere, and probably
change your password.
Many of you are listening and saying, duh, as we often get. Anyway, there's a lot going on in the world. Quickly, I also want to mention today, guess whose birthday it is today?
Whose is it?
Marilyn Monroe's. She would have been 100 years old
wow.
today. Isn't that crazy?
Golly.
Anyway, we're moving along, but I couldn't miss mentioning that because you think of so many folks as being locked in the period of time that fame hit them,
right.
And you forget time went on. So if Marilyn Monroe had made it through the 60s, she
would have been here.
Have been turning 100 today.
Yeah, wow.
Crazy.
Makes you think.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we're going to take you back to something we should all be thinking about. Hurricane season is upon us. Let's prepare on a budget. Coming up as Hello Houston continues.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
On the next Freakonomics Radio, we revisit a series about a role model we didn't know we needed.
So many crazy things really did happen to him.
The physicist Richard Feynman was one of the most brilliant scientists of his generation, but he was also a troublemaker, an obsessive, and a man who spoke truth to power. That's next time on Freakonomics Radio.
You can hear that tonight at 10.
The government selected a contractor without going through the legally required process of comparing offers and figuring out who could do the best job for the least money. And the urgency in this case is not a war, obviously, or a natural disaster, but just that the president wants this done by July 4th.
For the 250th.
Right. But remember, the 250th anniversary of the country has been on the calendar for 250 years.
I'm Michael Barbaro. That's Today on The Daily from the New York Times.
The Daily is on tonight at 7 o'clock.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Central Market, celebrating Texas farmers and makers with Texas-grown peaches, locally roasted coffee, artisan cheeses, and pecan pie. Now through June 9th. More at centralmarket.com.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manous and guest host Michael Adkison.
Hurricane preparedness is important, but it can also be expensive. So how can families get ready for storm season without breaking the bank? Diana Zarzuelo is the Chief Impact Officer for Greater Houston Community Foundation, and she's here to discuss simple, low-cost ways to prepare for the next big storm. Diana, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate being here.
I mean, I want to get into all of this. Talk about what being prepared looks like and how I think people get carried away. Toilet paper, do I even need to say it? But people get carried away. What does it look like to you to be prepared while not breaking the bank?
I really emphasize three things. So first is start small. Ernie, you had a tip earlier about every time you pass the dollar store, pick up an extra bottle of or gallon of water. That's exactly it. It's sort of every trip you take to the grocery store, maybe it's a flashlight or batteries or something like that, but really make a supply kit list and then piecemeal it over time and really build that up over time so it's not overwhelming. And the worst that you can do is to wait to the last minute. Like, we do it. But like, if we can avoid it, because why? It costs more. The lines are longer. The stress is high. So the more of us that can really prepare in advance, the better off we are. So start small. Then second, make a plan. So really, this can be absolutely free, low tech, doesn't have to be fancy. A lot of us can use our phones now and turn it on to just like write what we're saying out loud. But get with your family over a meal and talk about what would happen if a Category 3 hurricane came our way. Just make a plan. And the more that you can do that, the better off you'll be. And then third, talk to a neighbor. So the one thing that I think we don't think about and we don't talk about is how much social connections and neighbor-to-neighbor help really is instrumental for disaster preparedness. And the research is beginning to show it more and more. So the social connections in your neighborhood, but also in the area in which you live. So if you're someone of means, that means checking on a neighbor who is elderly or might have less. And buying more if you can, or a power cord for your generator, or whatever it might be, but doing more if you can. And that just building of relationships actually matters. So being a person that is open and friendly and talking to your neighbors is a really big deal. So 3 things: start small, make a plan, and talk to your neighbor.
You talked about making a plan, being prepared. When would you say is the right time to go shopping for all this? Because we've all been there. It's like rain comes down, summer gets hot in Texas, and before a storm, HEB is crazy. It's part of the nature of Texas.
Absolutely.
When is a good time to start preparing?
It's really like now. I mean, you can do it year round. I mean, Houston has different kinds of events year round now. It's not just hurricane season. We have winter storms. We have crazy wind events. The derecho we remember from a couple of summers ago, about 1 million people were without power for some meaningful amount of time. So it really can be at any point, but the start of hurricane season is always a good reminder for all of us, and appreciate outlets like you all just amplifying the need and the importance of being prepared.
You were talking about your neighbors, and I had a neighbor. He bought a big generator. Don't worry about it, Ernie. Anything happens, just run an extension cord, and then he moved. So now I don't have that generator anymore. It was very nice of him to offer, but he should have stayed put. The other one is waiting till the last minute. I did that one year, and I went to the store. Though I had a couple cases of Topo Chico, it really wasn't the water
doesn't hydrate
I needed.
You the same.
Yeah, it
really doesn't work the same.
I'm curious for folks that are on assistance with like STAR programs and all that stuff, and they have those cards. Do those cover any kind of hurricane supplies, or is it just for food? Do you know what the state policy is behind that?
That's a great question. I hate to say that I don't know for sure. So I would love to look up that question. And we do have a number of resources and tips at disasteralliance.org/prepare. So we have a wealth of information. But that's a great question, and I'll make sure to.
Yeah, I'm going to check into that too, because a lot of folks, they can't afford these things we talk about, and even when they're low income and they're low priced items. It still is a hard hit. And some people get assistance, and maybe that can help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I would point us to is, some people, buying extra canned foods or items like that is just not possible. So the Houston Food Bank has a huge network of partners. I mean, they're a system of themselves, and they do extra things during times like this for disaster preparedness. Those partners are incredible. Some of them are local churches, and some of them are nonprofits. So you could go to HoustonFoodBank.org, and then they have a little thing that says find help, and there's a map, so you can kind of find something close to you.
On YouTube, Chef Rob writes in that to save up and buy a generator and a window unit for AC, and which is a really good point, because most of these things that'll kick back onto your power and the generator, they can't run central air, and so many of us have that in our homes.
Right.
Get yourself a cheap window unit for maybe one little room, and if you've got a generator, that way you can at least keep that cool, because it can get really beastly here.
Yeah. The census actually came out with some interesting data recently on the number of households without AC.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you know how many? Do you want to guess?
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Well, I think it might be low. I'm going to look into the estimates, but it was about 25,000 estimated households, which would mean like maybe 75,000 to 100,000 people without any kind of AC. And then you have to think about the window units and things that don't work either that well. But it's a reminder that heat is actually the number one killer in terms of a natural disaster. And it's something we face all the time. Many of us take for granted here in Houston because we're used to great AC working. But a lot of people don't have AC, or they have really poor AC, and it's a huge risk.
Cooling centers. Where's there a good list, and who maintains that so you know when it happens? And actually, you should know beforehand, because when you're needing a cooling center, you probably don't have power.
That's right. Absolutely. So on our website, we actually link to all of the places that City of Houston, the Harris County, and surrounding counties have to sign up for alerts. So one of the most important things in making a plan is in getting ready is signing up for those alerts so that you get information readily available, including where the latest and greatest kind of cooling sites or heating sites if we're in the winter. So those are resources.
Stop there real quickly and say, what's that website again?
Oh, yeah. disasteralliance.org/prepare. If you want to.
All right. And then also with that is when you talk about getting alerts, is there a living list that tells you where they're going to be? Because when everything's down, if your phone is dead and your power's out, you can't go look at an alert.
Yeah.
So do you have where printable lists people can have on hand?
On that website, we have some printable resources that are basically they're held by government though, because many of those places are government organizations, which are great.
Yeah, but that goes back to your waiting till last minute. Oftentimes, if you don't already have a folder with all of that in that, if the power goes out, you can't find it because everything lives on our phones.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It is tough when power is out or cellular, like more and more things won't work. Like the things that we depend on, like our phone or our text or you really do. And that's where I go back to thinking through scenarios and having almost kind of like, making it not a game. It's like a serious thing, but ahead of time, it can be fun and you can get your kids involved. It's like, okay, well, what if our phones don't work? What do we do then? What if we need to evacuate? Like which relative would we rather spend 5 days with, So it can be something that you all get engaged with. And it's also important for kids to kind of start thinking about it. I was born and raised in Houston. I love Houston. And I think about my kids being another generation of Houstonians. And this is something that we have to face. We really do. It's part of our DNA. We like to joke that you're not a real Houstonian until you've survived a hurricane, right? And
what fun jokes you have!
And that. I mean, it's a thing. And so, to the extent that we're helping new people get ready for a storm, talk to a neighbor who's new, who just might have moved here from California or whatever that might be.
Because so many people are always coming into our area. You take for granted they know it. When I first moved here, I didn't understand when there was a little ice on the road. I'm like, I came from the east, so dry. But people here don't have the snow tires or prepared for it.
That's
and
right.
I didn't think about it.
We don't salt our streets as well. Yeah.
New people who come into town, let them know you need this and this. Oh, I have this brand new home. I'm lucky. No, you need to know.
Yeah. Keeping
your car filled with gas, another important one.
Yes, very,
all
very
through
important.
The season.
That's right. That's absolutely right. So yeah, the being prepared, being proactive, chipping away at it, checking on your neighbors, getting your kids involved, because this is only the reality that we're gonna increasingly face is a changing climate. And so how do we all better prepared and become more resilient? That's a part of our strength as a city and the need that we're gonna have to sort of tackle.
We're talking with Diana Zarzuelo, Chief Impact Officer for Greater Houston Community Foundation. Join the conversation. Call or text 713-440-8870. Diana, I want to go back to the budget and planning for, I've been both as an individual and as a reporter covering preparations for storm. I've been at grocery stores and it's a panic right before a big storm hits. And it's easy to get swept up in, I see everyone else buying water bottles. What do I need to buy? Water, toilet paper. There's no toilet paper. Do I need toilet? It's easy to get swept up in all of that. What would you say are the essentials that people need to buy in preparation for a storm?
Yeah, so I think about like your own health. Like if you're on prescriptions, making sure that you have extra prescriptions or something set aside for your daily needs. So that's really important. And people often forget that. Then it's sort of food and water. Count the number of people in your family, count how many times they eat. It's usually 3, and sort of stock up for, we think about 7 days. That not everybody can do that, but that's what we strive for. Water, gallon per person per day if you want to be on the generous and very prepared side, but yeah, that's what it takes. And then as you're seeing something come your way, we always fill a bathtub with water too, just for like sanitary reasons and just to be extra careful, because we've had situations where you can't drink from your faucet as a backup. So that's another way to prepare. So prescriptions, food, and water, and then we also think about hygienic items, so toilet paper's in there, but also some other things that you may need if you're going to relocate to somewhere else that might not be as comfortable. Just something that, some shampoo, some conditioner, things that you can kind of store in a plastic bag. Doesn't have to be fancy. So those are some of the things that we think
have
about.
some great advice coming in from our YouTubers. They're on top of this for you. Some stuff that I hadn't even thought of. Get a cheap burner phone and keep it fully charged. They have a heck of a long battery life, just a plain dumb phone.
That's great.
And that goes along with somebody who says, get a list of phone numbers, print them out on a piece of paper. You'll need the phone numbers if they're in your phone. And they went on to say they don't remember anyone's number. Keep your generators checked up. Make sure that they're working and in good order. If you live in a condo with no terrace, figure out an escape plan. Make sure you know your way out. What else did I see go through here?
I did see someone mention the bathtub.
Keep the bathtub full of water.
The other thing I was going to say is important documents. To the caller's point about the phone numbers. Just some basic ID, photocopies of IDs, and some, things for your children. I mean, I always keep an extra copy of the birth certificate just for extra cases. These are my children. Yep. And if anything were to happen, we would get separated or something wild like that. It's just important to just have all of your formal kind of documentation.
I bought one of those lockbox things, those heavy steel boxes that can go through fire and flood and whatever. And I got it at a cheap price. And I have it, and there's only one thing in it. It's my passport. I haven't found any of my other papers to put in it, but it's a really hard holder for my passport. It's very heavy.
I have those to store snacks away from my kids, all those sugary snacks. Yeah, I have the code, and no one else has it.
Another thing people say is, what is your advice for people who live in condos or apartments where they can't have a generator?
Well, truthfully, we can't have a generator. I live in a house, and it's sort of one of those tight houses without
I went
a huge
to get
backyard.
One and I don't have the space.
Yeah, I don't have enough space for it. And so, it's tough. I mean, we're going to have to be prepared to be without power. Now, CenterPoint has invested billions of dollars to shore up our power infrastructure, but even with all of that preparation and massive amounts of investment, something can happen. Something can crash into, a post that's on our street, and we can't predict everything. So, in my opinion, what we plan to do is move. Be prepared to have a place to go. And my parents have enough space. My sister-in-law has enough space, and one of them has a generator and the other doesn't, but bottom line is just make a plan for where you can stay put.
A wine goddess says online, she would also add laminating that paper that you need, the important stuff, or putting it in plastic sleeve of some kind for your documents. We all know that we've been talking about this earlier in the show. It's the water that's often the biggest villain in all of this and keeping things dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. So go over your top 3 again as we wrap up here.
Great. Yeah. So start small. Don't get overwhelmed by it, and don't wait to the last minute. So every time you can chip away at your supply list, do that. Make a plan and maybe have some fun with it. Like over dinner with your kiddos or your grandkiddos or whomever. FaceTime in some people. Just get it going. Make a plan, and it can be low tech. And then talk to a neighbor. So the neighbor to neighbor, whether you're in a condo or somewhere else, it really all matters. So you can help each other as much as possible.
And one more thing, when you talk about kids, think about what are you going to have for activities for kids. So often we give them a tablet or a phone to play on.
Yeah.
Get some low-tech toys. Get activity books, things like that, games that you can play as a family, because the kids are going to lose their mind too if they don't have, they're all so dependent on the electronics now.
Yeah. Diana Zarzuelo is the Chief Impact Officer for Greater Houston Community Foundation. Diana, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, we're going to talk more about floods with flood control mitigation with the Harris County Flood Control District. Stay with us right here as Hello Houston continues.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Make your gift now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
On the next Fresh Air, historian Elizabeth Storedor Pryor spent years lecturing on the most charged word in American English and never told a soul that her father was the man who infamously used it, the legendary comic Richard Pryor. We talk about the N-word, growing up as Pryor's daughter, and why late in his career he swore to never say the word again. Join us.
You can listen to Fresh Air tonight at 8 p.m.
Support comes from the Grand 1894 Opera House presenting the Texas Tenors. Celebrating their 15th anniversary, the vocal trio will perform selections spanning country, classical, Broadway, and patriotic music. July 3rd, tickets at thegrand.com.
Support comes from Pearland, Texas, a community supporting innovation in business, science, healthcare, energy, and inspiring their citizens. More on innovation happening in Pearland at pearlandedc.com. Pearland, innovation lives here.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, offering customers electricity plans that match their energy use schedules and lifestyles. All plans come with 100% renewable energy. Details at chariotenergy.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Ernie Manous and guest host Michael Adkison.
While flooding remains a constant concern for many Houston residents throughout the year, that concern is greatly enhanced during hurricane season. To mitigate the risk of flooding in our area, the Harris County Flood Control District works to create and maintain several flood risk reduction projects, including bayou widening and stormwater detention basins. Additionally, the district is also encouraging residents to attend a series of public meetings where they can review and provide feedback on FEMA's new draft for its Harris County floodplain maps. To discuss these new maps and flood mitigation strategies for hurricane season, we are joined by Emily Woodell, the Chief External Affairs Officer for the Harris County Flood Control District. Emily, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to join the conversation, give us a call, 713-440-8870. There's a lot to talk about with flood maps, and I know it can seem a little inside baseball when we talk about this, but what did the new maps and their release mean for our understanding of flooding here in Harris County?
Yeah, so I think when we look back at events like Tax Day, Memorial Day, Hurricane Harvey, one of the things that was underscored most severely is that our maps were incredibly out of date, right? So we saw flooding happening, the majority of it outside of the mapped floodplain. The last time that our maps were updated was back in 2007. So that was after Allison. And so there was a consensus from FEMA and from our local leaders to really say, hey, we need to make sure that the tools that we're giving residents and the way that we're measuring risk is as up to date as we can make it. And so there was a big push to make sure that we had updated topography, updated rainfall amounts, and that's what really informed these new maps. You see expanded floodplains, but at the end of the day, this is risk that people on the ground have been facing for years. It's just an illustration of that risk.
I guess my problem with it is where we live and the constant changing and development and growth of this city. Is a map even necessary? Isn't the point, if you live in this region, prepare for a flood? End of the story.
Yeah, we say that all the time. If you live in Harris County, you are at risk of flooding, right? These maps at the end of the day are a risk product. It's all based on probability, on modeling, but I can tell you Mother Nature has never once called us and asked where the rain should go based on the maps, right? And so we say every day that if you live here, you should have flood insurance and you should be prepared. All the things Diana was just talking about are things that, whether you're in or out of the floodplain, you should be taking.
So then how should we, as regular citizens of this area, view these maps, and how should we use them in our daily life?
Yeah, absolutely. I see them as a tool, right? They're a really important tool. When it comes to flooding and our region's number one disaster, information is power. And that's really what we try to tell people. So these maps are a great way to view risk, but they are not the end all be all. You also should look at your street drainage and make sure that you understand how your neighborhood drains. You should remember that roads are part of our flood risk reduction infrastructure. So our roads are built to flood so that your home doesn't, right? And so all of these things factor into how you make decisions. But at the end of the day, these maps are a great tool for if you're thinking about relocating or you're thinking about where to send your kids for daycare, all these different kinds of things. They really are just another tool in the toolbox to understand risk in our area.
If I'm looking at Harris County right now and looking on the map, where should I be for the safest outcome?
You know, I couldn't point to a specific area. What I can say is that, you know, we did see increases in flood risk across the county. However, what we also saw is that some areas saw a major reduction based on work that has gone into the ground. So places like Meyerland actually saw an immense reduction in the floodplain because of the Project Braze work that happened.
Wow.
And so, you know, we have a slider on our website where you can kind of see the before and after. One thing that you'll notice is that the new maps are incredibly detailed in a way that the old ones weren't. And so it's just better information and a better way to make the decisions that you're talking about.
The website is what?
It is hcfcd.org/mapnext. It's also on our homepage, so you can click that.
Give me that again.
hcfcd.org. Yeah.
Kind of going off of that, you know, we've talked about residents. What did the release of this draft, these new maps, mean for your organization and the work that you guys do?
Yeah. So we have been accounting for this type of risk for a long time. So we know that that rain is increasing, that it's raining more intensely, and that rain is becoming more unpredictable, right? The major driver of the map increases is a 30% increase in just the sheer amount that it's raining in our area. And we've been taking that into account as we plan projects for years. And so, you know, I think, again, this is sort of an on-the-ground expression of the risk that we know has existed. We've already been designing to these standards, and that's something that we've really taken seriously as this issue has evolved.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, what have you heard from stakeholders, folks in the community about these maps? I know there was a lot of just relief, like a breath of fresh air, that we actually have a new draft. Like 100%. Even just that concept was a big relief to a lot of Houstonians. But what have you heard feedback-wise on these maps, what they reflect and what maybe they're still missing?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. I think there was a major recognition of this needed to happen. Thank God we're here. It's always better to have something on the table to refine, I think. One of the things that we've heard is, you know, people calling us and saying, hey, I'm shown in the 100-year floodplain, but I've never flooded. My street's never flooded. And again, I go back to these are just a sort of probability map, right? A map of risk. Just because you haven't flooded doesn't mean you're not at risk of flooding, right? We calibrated these maps to real storm events, but they are not based on real storm events. They're based on sort of flow. The other thing that we've heard is just, you know, how can I participate in this process? How can I weigh in? We're hosting sessions, like you guys mentioned, for folks to really learn more and ask questions. FEMA will also have formal comment periods as we move through the process. So I really want residents to know that One, we're seeing decreases in floodplains based on the work that's happening. Two, these maps are draft, and so there is no regulatory impact right now. And then three, just what I was saying, there are multiple opportunities as we move through this process to really engage and weigh in, but you got to pay attention and you got to show up.
When you talk about weighing in, what can the general public do to aid in these maps? What is their information? How does that compare to what you're getting from more official sources?
Sure. So FEMA's process does require some sort of formal appeals to the maps. However, I think what residents really help us see is where they think something's not making sense so that we can go take a more engineering-based look at it, right? So unless somebody points it out to us, we're not going to know to go over and check out that area in detail. And so not only as FEMA's technical partner, the flood control district's part of this, but it's also the 34 floodplain administrators, like the city of Houston, the city of LaPorte, all the different municipalities in the area. And so residents can talk to us, or they can talk to the city that they live in and those government officials to really make sure that their voice is heard.
I don't know if this is the right question for
That's
you,
okay.
but I'm curious about it. When bigger apartment complexes and things are built, I had at some point heard that they have to think about water and how to move water because they're taking up land space and what to do and the flooding and all that. What is the policies there? What do we know about that?
Yeah, Ernie, that's a great question. So you're right, we don't regulate that, but we do provide, guidance sort of based on what we see from a technical perspective. The thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is the city of Houston and Harris County have some of the strictest development standards in the nation. So you're right. When new development goes in, people are required to build up to a certain height if they're in flood-prone areas, and they're required to provide detention to mitigate that increased impervious cover is what we call it, but concrete, really. Right. And so what folks do is they'll build detention under the building, right near it, but the runoff basically has to be a net zero for that development to go in. So that's new development. Development that happened, a little bit earlier or, a little bit before the 80s especially, that's really where we see a lot of the risk. And so a lot of the work that you see the city and Harris County proper doing is about retrofitting those older developments to make sure that they are just as protected as anything that goes into the ground today.
As we see all the tearing up of streets and those big round circular tubes being put in, is that for retention or for moving the water somewhere else?
Typically that's for moving the water, right? So every project's a little different. So there's some engineering nuances, right, in anything that goes into the ground. But typically that's about conveyance. So one of the things that we know is we can open the bayous as much as we can, but if the water doesn't make it out of the neighborhoods, that's for naught, right? And so a lot of those places where you see those big pipes going in is to get the water out of neighborhoods and to make sure that it's draining effectively. Again, that's an issue in places that were built, 80s and before, but, there's always an opportunity to modernize
and
those
so then
things.
that impacts the flood maps and what we see because now we have knowledge of, now there's this system, so therefore we're expecting that. Is there a lot of calculation that goes in, or is it tried and true practice and reflection of what we've seen?
It's a lot of calculation, right? So Harris County is a little bit special. I always have to say that. In that we are one of the only entities across the country that actually controls our models locally. So typically FEMA handles it, right, at the federal level. But they talked to us at the flood control district and said, you know what, you guys got this. We can work together on this. And so we're able to move those conversations much more quickly and do the calculations that you're talking about.
I'm curious, I hope you have the answer to this. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. No, we talk a lot about water infrastructure and wastewater and how much water is lost by piping. I'm curious, is that an issue as we talk about flood mitigation as well, that piping needs to be replaced after a certain number of time? And because at a certain point, if there's wastewater, it's just still flooding again. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. There's not a ton of overlap between the two issues, but I will say maintenance is a key priority for us.
Gotcha.
Just the same way as it is in the wastewater world, right? And actually back in 2004, that was an issue that was taken to voters, and voters actually approved an increase to our dedicated tax rate so that we could better maintain our infrastructure. And that has been frankly transformational for our agency. We have been able to triple our output on the maintenance side, respond to residents much more quickly, and really honestly transform the way that our organization is operating and responding to a lot of that. So maintenance is near and dear to our hearts. We're one of the only entities that does capital and maintenance work. And so both sides of the house are very busy at all times.
I'm going to give you 20 seconds as we wrap up here, just to wrap up for our listeners. What should they need to know right now about these flood maps?
Yeah, so right now, definitely participate in our information sessions that we have going on. Those are on our website as well. And I think what I would really emphasize is that, one, we see that these projects are working. And this year alone, we're bidding more construction work than ever before as an agency. So more work is on the way. And then number two is I would just ask residents to really pay attention and to engage in these conversations. These maps are going to be as good as we make them. And it takes all of us leaning in to be able to do that.
Emily Woodell is the Chief External Affairs Officer for the Harris County Flood Control District. A great title and a great person. Thank you, Emily, for coming in and sharing with us. And that brings us to the end of our show. Michael, you made it through with me again.
Another week. Another great week.
You going to be here next Monday?
I hope so.
I hope so, too. And I thank all of you for watching and listening. I hope you feel better prepared for hurricane season after what you learned on today's show. We'll be back tomorrow with State Representative Dr. Suleiman Lalani and a visit from Lyle Lovett. All that's coming up tomorrow on Hello Houston, right here on News 88.7. So long.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kavacik. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service.